All right, so this comparison contrast lecture, which is your first essay, uh, I'm going to break into two parts. There's actually only 9 slides to this whole thing, but I add an awful lot of information. If we're in the classroom, I do a lot of writing on the whiteboard. So I'm going to do the best I can to try to convey the same information, online like this as a video. So you probably want to be taking notes because a lot of what I'm going to say isn't actually on the slides. So the comparison helps us to choose. And again, the essays that I'm having you write in this class, the comparison, the cause and effect, and even the narration are to help you not only write those well, but to give you the skills to get good at doing those tasks, comparing and contrasting subjects, showing the cause and effects of certain events, being able to tell a story well. Because I truly believe that being able to do these well in your life will help you immensely well beyond your careers and in your own personal life. So, one of the things that a comparison and contrast can help us do is to choose between two or more alternatives. So, you've got to buy a new PC or a new computer, a new laptop. Do you want a Mac or do you want the PC? A lot of people will look at and say, well, the Mac is 4 times as expensive as the PC, so I'm going to buy the cheaper. Well, that may not be the smartest thing to do. I had the same MacBook for 10 years, and my wife had 3 different PCs. So you tell me who, had the better experience. Plus, mine never crashes, and hers crashed all the time. The other thing is, something like, do you want to go to college? This is from Animal House. If you've never seen Animal House with John Belushi, you should see it. Or do you want to go to work after high school? This is K-Fed. It used to be Britney Spears' first husband, or was, still is the first husband, but ex-husband now. Tried to be a rapper, didn't work out so well. Uh, so you got to decide, what do you want to do? Again, an awful lot of people will go to work right away because they can make decent money. But I've had an awful lot of students come back to school in their late 20s, early 30s, going, "Yeah, I went as far as I could with a high school education. Now I'm not going to make better money or get promoted if I don't have a degree of some sort." So these are the type of things that you want to do. And so it isn't just writing this essay. Being able to do an intelligent comparison and contrast of two choices you have to make can many times help you choose the correct option and make for a better life. So learning to do this goes beyond just writing this essay for this class or comparing comparison essays for any other class. History may have comparison essays. You may be asked to compare two different scientists in one of your science classes. But again, developing this skill, being good at this, will help you to make better life choices. So it goes beyond just this. All right, now you can also use a comparison and contrast to acquaint people with what's unfamiliar. So you compare what are familiar with what we are unfamiliar with. And I understand there's way too many withs in that sentence, but anyway. So you could compare American and Chinese culture, show what is similar between the two cultures, and then what is different. Uh, a book that we used to have, and they had this great essay in it. And when they went to different editions, newer editions, they dropped the essay. I don't know why, but it was about a guy who wrote an article for the New York Times who was living in Japan, and he compared Japanese culture with American culture. And it started, and this is why I say narration is a good thing to have. He narrated his 5-year-old's birthday party, where the 5-year-old was going to Japanese school, so invited all her Japanese friends or his all Japanese friends, I don't remember which, to the birthday party. And one of the games they played was musical chairs. And he talked about how they set the chairs up, they explained the game to the children, and then they played the first round of music, and when the music stopped, all the Japanese students very politely said, "Oh, please have a seat," to the other students. And so nobody's winning. And what was cute was the guys that once we really explained it to them well and they got the understanding, they were elbowing each other out of the way trying to get those seats. But it was a very good use of a little story, a little narration to show the differences between the two American cultures, and then he went into it. It was a great essay to have as well because it also talked about how he knew his uh, audience because he talked about New York cab drivers. Well, if he's writing for a Japanese audience, why would they know what New York cab drivers are like? But most Americans have some idea of what New York. Anyway, so and this is why I say you have to take into account your audience. There's things you can use as examples, language you can use that you can use for certain audiences but wouldn't work for other audiences. And this is why I say you want to think about who you're writing for and have an idea because it makes for a more precise writing and a better writing that's more geared towards the people you're writing for. All right. Now, again, it shows similarities and or differences. So for this essay, you can write just a comparison essay, just comparing the similarities. You can also just write a contrast essay where you only show the differences between something. Most of the time, most people do both because it makes it easier to write a longer essay, even though this is a pretty short essay, 3 to 5 pages. Uh, and why you're writing, what you're trying to convey to your audience will determine which you're going to use, whether you're going to use a comparison, whether you're going to use contrast, or you're going to use a comparison contrast. Uh, so if you want to show why it was hard to make a difficult choice, then you show the similarities. If you want to show why you made the decision, then you show the differences. All right. So I always use this example because I also use this as a lesson for the women in the class uh, because I actually saw this happen. But I use Xanadu. Xanadu, because I'm trying to use names that I know I never have in the classroom. Xanadu is dating two men. She's dating Xavier and Lawrence. All right, Xavier and Lawrence. And she's out to dinner with Xavier on Friday night. They're at Olive Garden, and she goes to the restroom and leaves her purse behind, which I don't think happens a lot. But anyway, and the reason I bring this up is I saw this happen, and my wife grabbed me and said, "Do not go over there." So while she's in the restroom, Xavier goes into her purse and pulls out her phone and starts going through her text messages. This is also why you want to have a password protection on your phone. Uh, and he sees all of these texts from Lawrence. So he puts the phone back in the purse, and when Xanadu comes back, he says, "Who's this guy, Lawrence?" And she breaks down and starts crying and then tells him, "Oh, I've been dating both of you. He takes me out on Saturday night. You take me out on Friday night." And he says, "Well, you have to make a decision. You go home tonight and decide who you're going to date, either me or this guy, Lawrence." So she goes home. Now, she knows that both Xavier and Lawrence love her. They both take her out to dinner once a week. Xavier on Friday, Lawrence on Saturday. They both bring her flowers whenever they come to see her each week. Uh, they both have their own cars and drive her to the restaurant. And so there's a lot of similarities. And she loves both of them, supposedly. Uh, and so it's a very difficult choice to make. Then she starts thinking about the differences. Well, Xanadu always takes me to Olive Garden or someplace like that for dinner. And Xavier always takes me to like Andiamo's or some fairly nice restaurant. Lawrence always brings me roses when he brings flowers on the date. And Xanadu always brings whatever he can pick from the neighbor's yard. Uh, Lawrence has his own 3 bedroom house on the lake in St. Clair Shores, and Xanadu's living in his mother's basement in Troy. And so, who do you think she chooses? She says, well, it's pretty simple. I'm going to go with Lawrence because I'm in it for the money. All right, not for the love. Anyway, so that's how you see. So it was difficult to make the choice when she's looking at the similarities, but when she started looking at the differences, oh, well, it's easy. We're going to go with Lawrence. Unless she's smart and realizes that Xanadu, while he may not provide the best life, it probably loves her more. Anyway, so that's why the essays are good. All right, now when is the essay used? Almost any college course. All right, so when can you see it being used? In college courses, sorry, I shouldn't have gotten into the business. In college courses, you can see comparing in a history class two wars, the Civil War with World War One, two movements, the Industrial Revolution with the Technology Revolution, uh, two countries at the same time, the Industrial Revolution of Britain with the Industrial Revolution of the United States. All right. In biology, two different organs and what they do, or two different phylums, whatever a phylum is. In physics, you could compare two theories. String theory with chaos theory. You can compare two scientists, two physicists. Einstein with Heisenberg. Yeah, not from Breaking Bad, the actual Heisenberg. All right, in business, these are all ones that I actually saw when I worked for the internet company. When the dot-com bubble burst, our controller was told by the CEO to get him, four different healthcare providers and show what they cost and what came with that. Of course, I told her not to even bother, just give him the cheapest one. That's the one he's going to pick, and that's what he did. The viability of various projects. And this is why in Comp 2 I'm big on teaching you how to argue well. Uh, a company only has so much budget every year, and you have to argue for why your project, why your sales project to get more salespeople in the field is going to bring a better rate of investment than the marketing people's ad campaign and different ad campaigns. So I was in charge of online advertising. And this is when the internet was brand new. So I had to really fight because nobody really knew if online advertising would work. But I would have to fight for, my $10,000 in the month of March coming to me instead of going to the people who did the traditional print advertising and different vendors. I mean, you've got Office Max, Staple, Office Depot. Which one is going to bring your office supplies to you? So it's used all the time. All right, now make sure you've got this because this is where you can have a lot of points taken away. There's three main types of organization for a comparison contrast. You have to pick one before you write and stick to it. If you start mixing them up, you're going to get a poor grade. So the one is you do each separate subject separately, so all of it at one time. So let's say we are going to compare Macs and PCs. So you say everything you're going to say about the Mac. So you're talking about the cost, the hard drive that it comes with, the RAM it comes with, what type of graphic card it comes with, what's the preloaded software. Then you talk about the PC, what the cost is, what's the hard drive, what's the RAM, what's the preloaded. Now the thing is when you do this, and this is for all three, whatever order you put the first one in, that's the same order you have to put the second one in. Because if it's a longer paper and someone's halfway through the second one and like, well, wait a minute, I forget, what did you say about the graphics card for the Mac? If you've done it in a different order, that person now has to start at the beginning of the Mac and go through it till it finds the graphic card. However, if you've got it in the middle of your PC assessment, he knows to just, or she knows to just go to the middle of the Mac assessment and we'll find the graphic card there. Now, the other thing you can do is point by point, and with a shorter essay like this one, this is fine. I don't think it's a good idea when you get into much longer comparisons. So you do the cost of the Mac and then the cost of the PC, the hard drive of the Mac, the hard drive of the PC, the RAM of the Mac, the RAM of the PC, the preloaded software, whatever. So each one, it's easier then to keep it in the same order, but it also gets like a tennis game where you're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So in longer essays, it doesn't work. What most people do is a combination of the two. So what that means is you would group things. So maybe you would talk about the cost. And so you talk about the initial cost, the cost of upgrades, the cost of additional software, uh, and then for the Mac, and then you say for the PC, the actual cost, the initial cost, cost of upgrades, the cost of additional software. Then you may go into the hardware, the hard drive, the RAM, the graphics card, the audio card, and then on the PC, the hard drive, the RAM, the graphics card. It's like that, and so you group it into sections. All right, so that covers the first half of this, and this is why I said I did break it. It was only five uh, slides, but I've taken over almost 16 minutes to do this, and this is why I broke it in half. It's a much longer essay in class, so be sure you read the chapter carefully as well, because there's information you're not getting, unfortunately, because I have to condense this somewhat. Then you would get more information. I would give you more examples if we were actually in the classroom doing this. All right. So when you're done with this, when you get ready, then you go to part two of this.